Came to Welford Road probably 20 or 30 years ago. Shall we leave it at that?
And a bit more, yes.
This was a lot different in those days. What was your experience like as a young lad being brought to Welford Road by your dad and standing here?
Well, my dad was had the rugby playing background. He played South Leicester upon Victoria Park and played for Tigers a couple of times, and so therefore it was not unnatural that he would bring my brother and I down here, park us on the bank here, which in those days was a coke bank with steps, very shaped, and this is the very place, and what a grand spot to watch a game from. I always love watching the game from the ends, and I see coaches these days tend to, because you can see the patterns of play much more clearly than staying at the side.
The stadium has changed an awful lot, and you mentioned that you actually ran out from this direction rather than on the halfway line, so this was the view that you had when you first became a Leicester Tigers player?
Yes, there was a low bank behind here, and a gully through which you came from the old clubhouse, downstairs floors of which were changing rooms, and then out we'd come, very often to that echoing from the applause in the stand from the hundreds of folk who are here.
The ground staff are very busy there with their preparations for the new season. Was the pitch much like this in the era you played in?
Frankly, I think it's fair to say no. Very often in September it would look like this, but inevitably, and the way the game was then played, there were various parts of it that certainly by November would be patches of mud. So no, and of course inevitably me playing outside centre, that was the place where I was supposed to make my miraculous breaks, and of course you're running through the muddiest part of the pitch.
You've had a very long association with the club. I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you about some of the players that you played alongside and some of the players you've watched since. Who were the guys when you were a player that you looked at that team sheet and thought, we're all right today because X, Y and Z is playing? Who were those guys, the standout players in your era?
Well, I was privileged, of course, to play with David Matthews, who his 500 games here will never be repeated, but he was a wonderful team man, and in many respects epitomised the whole spirit of the club and the way the game is played. But at the same time as David, there were a number of other guys who played in that same team. Our chairman, Peter Tom, of course, who once looked after me rather well when I was having my foot unscrewed by an unworthy northern guy, and Peter Tom came and sorted him out, to coin a phrase.
125th anniversary of Welford Road starting just about now. You're part of the heritage team at the club. It is a club that's built on its heritage. What kind of projects have you been involved in there?
Well, I had the temerity when I was president here to criticise some of our display cabinets and the way we kept things. So there was an implication, and I made a commitment then that when I finished my presidency I would do it. So that was 3 years ago. We're still logging. We've got almost 1,000 artefacts logged now, so we know exactly what they are, where they are. There was a Springbok head, for example, that was given to us in 1931 when we played the Springboks. And all in all, it's important for us to feel that that part of our culture is being cared for.